Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I've got my old setup back, ready to go with the good headphones and slightly different background behind me. Although I don't know if you would have even noticed that change unless I had pointed it out. And we are here again with some Monkey Amulet. We're playing good old Simian Spirit Guide and Karn the Great Creator, and I'm having a blast with this list. Unfortunately, we are currently 0-3, but like I've said in the past, the results are not what matters. What matters is the learning experience and the entertainment, and believe me when I say that this list has been quite entertaining. Hopefully, we can get a hand that plays a Titan on turn 2 or turn 3, thanks to only the presence of Simian the Spirit Guide. That is one experience that we have been lacking so far, and I'd like to get that under our belt here as we get in here for match 4. There is one thing that I wanted to address quickly before we jump into the league here, and that is Danilo Rubino, the person who originally suggested this list, put in the comments, "My apologies for the list. It amuses me a lot, and I have had several good results." And I wanted to mention this briefly here before we keep going. Never, ever apologize for your choice of deck list, your choice of cards. Whether it has good results or not is not even part of the question. The question is about testing. It's about finding out whether the cards that we are playing are viable. And oftentimes it's about having fun. And of course, Rubino, if your list amuses you and you perform well with it, then please do not apologize. Believe me, if I thought the list was something ridiculous and something that I thought was bad, I would say so. And I have not, because I think this list has promise. I'm sure that there's usefulness to the cards and the choices made in the list. And to be honest, I think that the current performance with the list is going to be more likely due to my own fault, error in making plays, making mulligan decisions, and sideboarding. These are things that I am not comfortable with when it comes to this particular deck list, of course, because I don't have the experience with it. So perhaps we might return to Simian Spirit Guide, Karn, the Great Creator, Shells for Amulet. But I wanted to mention that to Rubino as well as everyone else. If you have something that you like to do and something that you find to be relatively competitive in Magic, never apologize for your choice to play that deck or that strategy or that card. I will never make fun of you for it, and I'm having a good time. And that's all I'm going to say about it. Let's jump straight into match 4 here. All right, we are here for the match. Get match 4 underway. Obviously, we're on the play here. Simian Spirit Guide in the opener. Let's go. There we go. Love to see it. We have an Amulet. We're lacking a bounce land. We're lacking a couple lands. We can actually play a turn 2 Dryad here after a turn 1 Amulet here, thanks to the Simian Spirit Guide. I'm willing to try it. I hope that we find a bounce land. If we don't, it'll be a little sad, but we also have Garenbrig to speed us up a turn as well, so. And we, of course, can play a Karn if we don't manage to get Titan into play as a backup plan here, so. Turn 1 Amulet. What else? If our opponent will let us get there. Pass it back. Don't need the stop on our opponent's upkeep. I don't know when that's from, but we'll remove it now. My goodness, the quality of my videos has dropped drastically. I have extra stops in the upkeep. What am I even doing? I should just quit my YouTube career. Bounce land. Come on, bounce land. Let's go. Bounce land. Growth chamber. Off the top. Here it comes. You know what? It's still a land, so I'll take it. The question is, are we getting this Dryad into play now? If we do draw a bounce land, it'll allow us to cast a Titan this upcoming turn, regardless of whether we keep our Dryad in play or not. So I think that we probably go for it. Almost tried to cast the Simian Spirit Guide. That's not really the idea here. So bounce land gives us a turn 3 Titan, of course. Possibly Titan into a Karn in our second main phase, even. I could see that. Of course, assuming our opponent isn't just dead by that point. Hopefully our opponent is not going to be this slow to respond at every step of this game. And they have disconnected, sad to say. I'll let you guys know when they join back, hopefully. I'd like to play some Magic here. Let's look at him. Just chilling here in exile. With the Future Sight border. My goodness. I love Future Sight cards, by the way. In case you did not know that about me. Future Sight Logic Knot is the only Logic Knot, in my opinion. There we go. That's the frame that I like. Don't give me any of these modern masters Logic Knots. I want this beautiful twisted up frame. Look at the circular edge here with the mana cost on the left side. Oof. That's just too good. It's just too good. All right, our Dryad has made it into play. Land, pass it back. Our opponent's going to fetch their Polluted Delta here. Also, I did not mention it, but they do have Luris, so perhaps this is Mill. That would be a little bit of a problem. I believe Mill still plays Luris. I could be wrong, as our opponent plays a Dark Slick Shores. Glimpse the Unthinkable? Mesmeric Orb. Okay, so this definitely is Mill. That's interesting. I don't know how to feel about playing against Mill. Generally, it's a pretty bad matchup. Bounce Land off the top. Let's go Bounce Land. Another Amulet. Not really cutting it, sadly. I mean, we'll play it. We'll clock for 2 and pass it back. If we draw any land here, if it's to enter the battlefield tap land, we'll actually be able to cast Titan. But if it's a Radiant Fountain, for example, or some land that enters untapped, like either of the two that got milled over by the Mesmeric Orb here, then we'll be able to cast Karn. So we got some stuff going. Perhaps we'll be using an Engineered Explosives to blow up Mesmeric Orb. I don't know. What do we even have in the sideboard for this matchup? So we got Wormcoil Engine as a threat. Tormod's Crypt, potentially, to play around Ancestral Recall from our opponent. Visions of Beyond is the actual name of the card, but effectively, if there's 20 more cards in a graveyard, they can pay 1 blue to draw 3 cards, and Tormod's Crypt lets us play around that a little bit. Of course, we could always just Liquid Metal Coating our opponent. I don't know, we'll see what we line up here. Assuming our Karn even resolves, maybe that's jumping the gun a little bit. Our opponent could force us to search here off of this Field of Ruin so they can cast an Archive Trap. Something that could occur. Bounce Land. Come on, Bounce Land. Bounce Land. Bounce Land. Okay, they go for the field. This is in our upkeep, so there's no reason to float the mana. So get the Cool Forest, i.e. the snow-covered one. Any land is fine. Archive Trap, okay. Well, the occurrence did happen where our opponent had the Archive Trap. Looks like we would have been drawing Bajuka Bog, perhaps. We still have access to Hanweir and all of our Valcuts, so if we can resolve a Titan this turn, we'll be able to get some quite relevant lands here. Our opponent is not holding up anything like Drown the Lock, so if we can cast a Titan this turn, we most certainly will be doing so. Especially considering if they have more Archive Traps, they're already going to be able to play them this turn, and we don't want to give them the ability to play ones that they draw fresh off the top in the future, so we do draw the Bounce Land, which is fantastic. Alright, opponent, let's get to the main phase here. Don't surgical anything that we don't want you to surgical, please. Oh, there is 1 Valcut in the graveyard. That's kind of annoying. I had not noticed that before. But, you know what? That's okay. We got things. Our opponent could surgical Karn, perhaps. Alright, let's go ahead and make some mana here. Oh, we get to play Karn and Titan this turn. I forgot that we had a second Amulet out. So we mill over another Karn. Alright. I see what's happening. Let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's see, 8, 9, 6, 10. So now we actually need to allow this thing to untap twice to be able to cast both of our Threats here. It's going to cost us a couple more cards, but I think we can deal. Surgical extraction targeting Valakut. Yeah, there's not much that we could have done to play around that, so it's fine. We won't be able to kill our opponent with Valakut triggers, but perhaps we won't need to. We shall see. Let's make some mana here. All right, we still have not managed to mill over our Hanweir, which is nice. Pick up the Gruul Turf, and let's start by casting Titan, leaving a red floating so that we can haste it. Leaving 2 red floating. Of course. 2 is better than 1. Don't you already know this? Alright, there's the Hanweir, and I suppose we might as well get Feel the Dead in play as well. Probably only untapping each of these one time. I suppose maybe we could have gotten another Titan in play here. I don't know, though. Every untap that goes by is another chance for the Hanweir to get milled. So I don't know if that would be worth the effort, of course. And let's go ahead and play our Karn, I think. Into play. And are we doing anything with this Karn? We can use Ballista for the last couple points of damage, perhaps. Let's just wait on the Karn until our second main phase at the very least. Attack with everything, of course. Yep. And here we can get a bounce land, and actually, the maximum amount of mana that we can leave in play is 5, so no reason to try to cast Wormcoil or anything. I suppose it makes some sense to get Liquid Metal Coating into play. We have 23 cards left. If we get 2 lands here, we'll have 21, and then we'll be losing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Maybe several from the bounce lands here, although we can stack the triggers so that we pick up the bounce land before they would untap, so that's probably a good idea. I'm inclined to get Growth Chamber and any other named land here. I guess Telaria West makes sense. Sure. So here we'll stack all of the untaps first, so we don't have to untap with this Growth Chamber and mill over some cards. Pick up the Growth Chamber. Untap, 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 untap. Damage. We will minus Karn for coating. Yep. We will play the coating and hope that we are not dead this upcoming turn to something crazy like Glimpse the Unthinkable. It is possible. Let's target this watery grave here. And yeah, we'll see what happens. Our opponent is dead on board here. There we go. We win game 1, which is a great place to be against Mill. In the past, I have liked siding up to more than 60 cards against Mill, but an opponent once told me they thought that that was not a particularly apt idea. I don't know if I believe them, in all honesty, but I might be inclined to try staying at 60 cards and being as consistent as possible. Their argument was that making our deck more inconsistent is not worth the extra 1 card of mill that it basically counters to have additional cards in our deck. And that makes some sense to me. We want Dismembers for crabs and whatnot. Don't really want crab time to be happening. We can have explosives as well for crabs and for the orb, Mesmeric Orb, which I like. I think Karn is going to be pretty good in this matchup, especially if we get our Primeval Titans Surgical Extraction. I'm debating whether or not we want Boil. I think our opponent with their Darkslick Shores and things like a Boro or it wouldn't be crazy to see something like River of Tears or whatever as well. Maybe Boil's not that great, especially since it doesn't actually kill our opponent. I'm thinking probably not on the Boils. Alright, what do we not want? Grazer is not fantastic here. Summoner's Pact is going to be weak to both Surgical Extraction on Primeval Titan and also to Ashiok, which our opponent will almost certainly have. Spirit Guides actually are somewhat relevant as an attacker, believe it or not. We can bring in Ballista so we can transmute for it with Telarios, but I don't know if that's really the play. Uh, what else? What else? I suppose we can cut the Radiant Fountain, as the life gain doesn't really matter, and we can stay at 60. I will give Game 2 a shot at 60 and see how we feel about potentially siding above 60 cards for Game 3. It's been a while with this deck since I played with exactly 60 cards in Games 2 and 3 against Mill. We'll see if it functions pretty well here or not. As we have a hand with double Simian Spirit Guide. We can play a turn 1 Dryad. How about that? That actually sounds kind of amazing, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of want to do it. I think I'm gonna do it. Of course, it depends on what we draw. But I mean, we basically have 2 bounce lands here. We're definitely keeping. We basically have 2 bounce lands in our hand here, so a turn 1 Dryad might be insanely good, as our opponent mulligans to 5, which is unfortunate for them. They could be looking for an Ashiok, but I don't know. We can also wait and just cast a Dryad on turn 2 using 1 Simian Spirit Guide, so we have an additional one to cast as a threat to clock an Ashiok. Like, that's kind of a play. Don't know if it's a good one, though. We could just try to cast all of our cards in our hand as creatures. Just get the 2-power tribal beats going on here. It's really not irrelevant to have that ability, which is interesting to me. Alright, 5-carded opponent. Let's see what you can manage. If one of those cards happens to be a crab, and another one of those cards happens to be a fetch land, we might actually be in not particularly great shape. But we'll see, we'll see. You know how I said that we were staying at 60 cards for consistency and then kept a hand with no payoff whatsoever? I remember that. Darkslick Shores. Boo! You can't get boiled, can you, Darkslick Shores? Alright, now is the moment of truth. Are we casting a turn 1 Dryad? It'll be underneath Aether Gust and potentially something like Drown the Lock, which I think is relevant. I don't know. I'm inclined to just do it on turn 2, so I'm going to play out the Telaria West and pass. I suppose there is a reason to hold up Dismember here in case our opponent goes Crab and then plays and is going to play land immediately after. Although I suppose there's nothing we can really do about the trigger that they're going to get from the Crab anyways, but I suppose if they played a fetch land immediately after a Crab, then we would be preventing ourselves from milling an additional 3 cards, but I don't know if it's worth it. I'm just going to play the Telaria West and pass it back. We can play a accelerated Dryad this upcoming turn if we want to. Oh, still have a stop in the upkeep. Probably, now I'm thinking about it, this stop is because of liquid metal coating. That would make a lot of sense. And there's the crab into land. Okay, this is fine. Dismember wouldn't have done anything about this. Anyways. Whew. How about the 3rd Spirit Guide, everyone? Alright, well, we're definitely playing a Dryad this turn. Boom. Into play it goes. And we'll play a Gruul Turf. And pick up the Telaria West, I guess. Our opponent will most likely feel the ruin our Gruul Turf, but that might be okay. Do we want to use a Spirit Guide to dismember our opponent's Crab? I don't know. It's probably worth an additional 3 cards of mill to keep the Spirit Guide in our hand. Believe it or not. Mesmeric Orb. Okay. And they pass it back. That's interesting. We'll yield to these orbs. Garenbrig. Okay. Are we casting one of these guides for the beats? I think we are. We could also transmute Telaria West for like a Summoner's Pact or a Valcut or something. We could transmute for a Valcut and then play Valcut Vesuva copying Valcut, and that way even if they field one of them, we still have Valcut on board. That's not irrelevant at all. We're still 1 land away from Valcut mattering in the first place, though. We definitely can't play a Spirit Guide and Transmute this turn, which is kind of sad. We also can dismember the crab to start attacking for 2, which is probably relevant. I think it's going to be better to Transmute for Valcut here, potentially. We could Transmute for Summoner's Pact, and then we get kind of got by Ashiok, but I don't know, it's an odd situation. Because our opponent could also have a counterspell like a... I don't know if they would play Force Negation, but they might have like a Drown the Lock for a Summoner's Pact, which would be kind of awkward. Wow. I think we are Transmuting this turn, though. So I'm going to play out the Garen Brig and float some mana. I guess there's no real reason to float more than the 3 here, so... I don't know, I'm playing this slow for absolutely no reason. Makes no sense. Transmute. We could go for the Valcut, but I'm going to go straight for the Summoner's Pact, I think. And do we play out the Vesuva as a copy of the Gruul Turf? I think that we do. We'll pick up the Forest here, of course. This means that we have Titan mana this upcoming turn. And I think we probably are going to use a Simian Spirit Guide to dismember this crab now. I wanted to hard cast you monkeys so bad. I really did, but I think that we have better plays to make. So maybe we'll hard cast this last Simian Spirit Guide here. Could be possible. Definitely don't want to yield through our opponent's turn, as if they do just cast an Ashiok, we're going to want to respond with our Summoner's Pact, of course. We see a Visions of Beyond and Prismatic Vista enter the graveyard. This is the Ancestral Vision card that I was talking about earlier. 2 mana. Maddening Cacophony. There is a Primeval Titan in the graveyard now, so that could be a little annoying. Hopefully our opponent doesn't get us with a Surgical Extraction here. I'm going to go ahead and cast this Pact with mana already in play to cast Primeval Titan. We're not going to do anything other than put this Primeval Titan on the stack so that our opponent can't respond by surgically extracting our Primeval Titan. Let's see. We want to leave the red floating for activating the Hanweir that we're likely to get in about 2 seconds. Assuming that's it. No, there's still a Hanweir in our graveyard. Perfect. And a Valcut. Fantastic. That's what we want to see. So we're definitely getting Valcut here. We could bog ourselves to play around the Drown the Lock. I think that's probably a good idea. We could also get a bounce land. We already have a bounce land to play with Dryad in play, so... Although we might want to pick up this Gruul Turf and play it as a second Valcut, which I think we probably will want to do, so let's get a Growth Chamber here. And let's save targets these Valcut triggers upstairs. Always yes, always yield. We'll pick up the Vesuva and get another Valcut in play immediately to play around our opponent's Field of Ruin. Always yes, the second one. Heck yeah. Our opponent is almost dead this turn. But not quite. If we had one more land drop, our opponent would be dead. See what our opponent can do here, or maybe we win the match. 2-0 against Mill. Can you imagine that? I hope our opponent gives us the chance to cast Simian Spirit Guide, though. I want this guy to be in play as a 2/2 creature. It's just the respect that Simian Spirit Guide deserves, you know? Alright, well, didn't get to cast Spirit Guide, but you know what? I'm not going to complain. I'll take it. We are now 1-3, so we've begun our slow climb of a comeback here. Maybe we can end up 2-3, and I will be able to wrap up with some thoughts about the deck list. I'm not going to go into any detail about my wrap-up thoughts here. Let me know if you enjoyed this match in the comments below. Let me know if you learned something. And also, Do you sideboard above 60 cards against Mill, or do you stick to 60 cards? Let me know. I'm very curious. I know that F. Paulus likes to side up to 69 cards if he can for the meme of it, and I definitely see the meme value in that. But let's have a honest and real discussion about that in the comments, because I do not know the answer. And I will leave you with that thought. This is Redface Menace, signing off.